Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you gotta get spotted. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. Well, it's Wednesday already, but that's what happens when you have a holiday on the Monday. I'm sorry I'm a little bit late. I ate a lot more for breakfast this time because I was not feeling so great yesterday, and I felt like maybe I didn't eat enough. So I tried to push more calories into me for breakfast, but it takes time, all right? So, anyways, let's go check out what the markets are up to today. So over here in Treasury land, they did end up pushing lower in the end, although I would say that it was a little bit of a battle at first in the overnight session here today, though. Not much activity, kind of going sideways, and it does kind of look like the volatility is kind of like contracting on us here. And when we come over to the S&P 500, it continues to be just a little bit lower. So when I see it, it's just like, you know, each day it closes just a little bit lower. That starts to scare me. Those are some of the worst kind of downtrends. But I know it's only a few days, so nothing to panic about yet. Oil had a wild day yesterday. They did give up about half of the gains that they had made. We're at 86.33 right now, but with some confirmation of stories about oil and Russia and Saudi Arabia extending oil output cuts and so forth. I'm seeing a lot of people saying $100 barrel of oil in Sweet Light is just around the corner. So big move. The oil, probably the biggest mover yesterday. Gold and silver, they took a little bit of a dive yesterday as well because of the rates, but nothing too big. Kappa's still kind of a little sideways. We come over to the currencies. The dollar is still looking pretty strong at 104.6, and Bitcoin just languishing at the lower end of its range. You really got to wonder at what point does somebody else decide to give up, because this thing is just not going. Okay, now I am seeing some downside action here in the S&P 500. We did have some news on the U.S. trade balance. We got a negative 65.022 billion. Versus an expected negative 68. So the trade balance was not as big as we thought it would be. We have Feds Collins speaking. I thought we had more than, yes we do. Okay, services PMI is today. Yes, so services PMI is a pretty big number. I might be relatively quiet until then. Let's see what else we got. Good morning, Octavius. Wow. Mohammed A. El Arian. The reversal in price developments has been quite dramatic in the oil market, including diesel prices having climbed more than 40% in the US and Europe since May. I'm really starting to get a little upset about the situation in oil. Oops, I have my left my speakers on. Let's fix that. Well, it sounds like Collins is speaking hawkishly, saying that demand is still outpacing supply. Hey, good morning, Alan. How you doing? So I think we're probably going to get a lot of. It doesn't sound like it's. Oh no, okay, we do get the speech. There is a text, so. Yeah, she's kind of speaking hawkishly, but the market doesn't seem to care. Not nearly as much as they did about yesterday's Fed speech. I'm kind of a little surprised here. So as I was saying, I'm starting to get upset about this situation with oil, because basically what happened is Biden thinks that, and the Democrats think, that inflation was mainly triggered by rises in oil prices. I mean, that was kind of a little bit of the spark. And so Biden decided to open the SPR, pretty much emptied the SPR. And now what we're seeing is that the Saudis and OPEC and everything just waited him out. They just waited him out. And now that he's out of oil to release, they're just going to cut their output conceivably into the first half of 2024. And we're going to see higher oil prices. And does that, I mean, that could result in more inflation. Could. I think by that point, though, there might be other things going on that matter more. So I don't know if like that election hinges on that or what, but. This is one that I hadn't heard before. As China slips into deflation, one word is popping up more and more. Japanification. they're worried that China is going to turn into Japan with the declining birth rate and everything. Man, that is, I tell you what, never before have I seen, well, I guess it's not like one of those things where it like these sorts of situations happen all the time, but never before have I seen the narrative around a country like flip so hard. And most Americans have not picked up on it. Like, remember at the Republican debate, there was still candidates up there talking about China and stuff. You know, like when Trump was running, it was all China. It's not a problem anymore. It's not the same situation at all. And I read that article yesterday about Xi. So apparently, like all of the party elders, including the people that were like president before Xi, you know, like they have a whole meeting and they basically expressed displeasure to him. And then his aides, then he started complaining to his aides. So like he actually, I kind of thought, I thought she had like complete power, but he is quite bothered by this. And kind of like being very defensive. Which is a kind of an interest, kind of paints a picture of somebody in charge that really shouldn't be. To me, at least. Tell you what, that's when I'm... What you get with a leader, that's when I'm voting, that's one of the things that I care about the most. Believe it or not, a guy that's a little narcissistic, I wouldn't say that he has like narcissistic personality disorder, but he thinks very highly of himself, Donald Trump. That's not necessarily always turns out bad. In fact, I'd say I'm only favor somebody else other than Trump simply because I don't feel that he actually performed when he was in office. I think that he tried a couple of things, but they like ultimately didn't work. But does anybody else really that great? That's a real problem. Is like, if Donald Trump wasn't running, would Republicans be enthusiastic about whatever candidate they have to replace him? Would it be Ron DeSantis? They really be enthusiastic about Ron DeSantis? It doesn't seem to me like Ron DeSantis is generating enthusiasm. It's a real problem for the Republican Party. Real problem. They got nothing other than Donald Trump going for them right now. And eventually Donald Trump will go away. He's not actually the God Emperor. Eventually he will. If he wins, then he gets another term. But then after that term, then what? Yeah, I guess that means you have another 4 years to develop a new leader. But like, keep waiting and they're not happening. Kind of seems to me like there's more of a systemic problem around in our politics that is kind of preventing us from getting good leaders now up to where they need to be. Amir, good morning. But I guess the curious thing about it is I've felt recently that a lot of the West problems comes down to having weak leaders. But I'm starting to realize that it's like weak leaders all around. Pretty much every place in the world. I mean, I guess in some respects you could consider Putin a, quote, strong leader, but then he's making really stupid choices too. So even though he acts like a strong leader, he makes weak choices. So really, and then she is not a very good leader. It's really like pretty much everybody is. What's wrong with RFK Jr.? Okay. Man, so how should I approach this one? I mean, the first problem with him is that he doesn't stand any chance getting anywhere near the presidency whatsoever. Okay, like, if Joe Biden died tomorrow, you know his wife has COVID, let's just say, for the sake of argument, wouldn't wish this on anybody, but let's just say, for the sake of argument, that Joe Biden died tomorrow. Okay, or he chooses not to run. Okay, now you have to have a Democrat primary. Who runs? Well, Kamala probably runs as vice president. Mr. California, what's his name? My brain is still getting going this morning. Gavin Newsom, he would run, and of course RFK Jr. is already kind of running and is like the only one really trying to challenge Joe Biden right now, right? Okay. Of those three people, if they were doing polling right now, RFK Jr. would be in third. Betterment. dude, that whole thing, but I really think that there needs to be like, I don't know if you want to have a test, but I think that there should be, maybe it should be a test. There needs to be a process through which, we test our leaders for mental acuity. Or really, because like with McConnell, that bothers me. I mean, I don't think necessarily that he should be kicked out of the office. Okay. I would prefer that he steps down as leader and the Republicans pick another Senate leader, because, that guy has a lot of control over the strategy for Senate Republicans. And he's maybe not up to the task, and also the fundraising. Maybe he's not up to the task. But, the voters voted in him, so I don't know if you necessarily want to kick him out of office, but certainly he shouldn't run again, right? Anyways, do you believe polling? By and large, yes, polling is pretty effective. So, yeah, I can already tell you're in the conspiracy theory territory, right? So it's like, well, okay. So if I list a reason why I think that RFK Jr. would be an ineffective candidate, and then I cite the polling that he's not going to win, and you say, well, you don't believe the polling. The polling is actually, there's flaws in polling, okay, but I don't think that most people understand where the flaws are, right? Because where the flaws really are right now is in the turnout model. Because if you go and you poll 1,000 people, okay, but they all happen to be Democrats, then you're going to get a flawed, you're just by chance they all ended up being Democrats, then you're going to get a flawed view of what the electorate thinks, right? So what they do is they look at their sample and they look at the demographics of their sample and make sure that the demographics of their sample matches the actual demographics of the country as we know it. Okay. So they're going to say, okay, we need a certain number of men and a certain number of women. We need people of all of these different age groups in the proportion that those age groups exist, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because there can certainly be a thing like if you're only calling people on landlines, well, most kids these days don't have a landline. They just have their cell phone. So you're going to get an older voting group demographic. And so you have to adjust for that, right? And the problem that we have is that they kind of have to have a turnout model. They have to say, okay, how likely are Democrats to come out and how likely are Republicans to come out? And that's something that's very uncertain. And so the polling can be off by a good 5 to 7 points, I would say, because of turnout. And that's how you end up with these situations where the race is pretty close, but the pollsters are really certain that certain person is going to win, and then they're wrong. Okay? But that is not what we're talking about. Okay? We're talking about somebody that like, all other things being equal, probably wouldn't even break 5% in a poll. Okay? So we're not talking about, oh, this guy has 52% and this guy has 48% and then the guy with 48% wins. No, we're talking about somebody that only has like 5% in the polling and is just not a challenger. Okay? So that's the first thing that we've got to point out. But that doesn't really answer the question, does it? What's wrong with RFK? Because all that's doing is establishing that there is something wrong with RFK, but what actually is it? right? Why don't voters latch onto him? Well, it's because he's latching onto conspiracy theories and saying things that aren't true. I mean, on one hand, it's nice to see somebody out there questioning the narrative on things like Ukraine and on things like the vaccine and so forth, okay? But by and large, voters don't agree with them, especially on the Ukraine issue. I mean, that's a big issue for Republicans. Like, Republicans have definitely soured on the war because it's being run by a Democrat, I guess. But I'd say it's a big vulnerability for them this next election because Americans, especially independents, by and large, still support the Ukraine war. You know, I really and the thing is his tendency to go into something that he just doesn't know what he's talking about. I think it's like funny that this is the example, but the whole thing about, oh yeah, the CIA totally killed my I forget what the relation is. Is his granddad? I don't remember. They totally killed JFK? No. Okay, where they got that from was a guy that was investigating thought that it was the CIA, and that had been written down in documents a long time ago, and then those documents eventually came out. That's where that came from. It's not confirmed that the CIA killed JFK. It's just not. But then he comes out and he says it like without any kind of qualifier whatsoever. You know, there's no like, okay, this is what we think, and I personally think that maybe that it was, or no, it was like with absolute certainty, yeah, they killed my father. It's but people pick up on that eventually, and the people that believe in the conspiracy theory, they'll be whole hog on it, but the larger public by and large doesn't go along with those things, and so that's why the conspiracy theory candidate usually doesn't do well. I guess the one counterexample being like Donald Trump, but I didn't consider Donald Trump the conspiracy theory candidate, because he never really dabbled in the conspiracy theories. He just let his audience dabble in them, and he kind of went along with it. But he was more just challenging orthodoxy with Trump, right? Our RFK is another level beyond that. The other thing is that when you look at that kind of behavior, it also, I think, suggests some qualities that are not very good to have in a leader, right? One of the most important things that you want to have in a leader is somebody that is able to objectively see reality. That's really important, okay? Not to toot my own horn or anything, but I work very hard at trying to understand what the reality is and seeing all of the nuance in it, because that's where we make our money when we're trading, right? Is being able to see something that other people can't, that's important enough that it will eventually affect markets and we can make money from it, right? You have to be able to be objective. Donald Trump, I tell you what, it's really an odd thing with him, because he is able to construct this reality around him that is just not, you know, it's his own world, absolutely. And like, he will pull everybody into it, and now they're all a part of this Trump reality, right? But when push comes to shove and there's a problem, he gets upset and he fixes the problem. You know, like with the immigration issue is a great example of how Donald Trump was able to do that. Because while they were giving, you know, so when the whole thing with kids in cages and migrants and all of that came out, right? On one hand, while they were pushing against that and saying that it was inaccurate and so on and so forth, at the same time, heads were rolling over at the Department of Homeland Security and so forth, and they made big changes, and eventually, it took them a long time to get their act together and fix it, but eventually, they were able to fix things and create a stable policy. that was like really effective. It's too bad that it happened at the end of his term and that it was almost immediately reversed by Joe Biden, but eventually he fixed it, right? And you also see that in his campaign, that like early on in his campaign when he was running, there was times when he wasn't doing very well, and he went through like 2 or 3 campaign managers until he was having success, right? Like at the end of the day, Donald Trump still demands performance. I don't see that in RFK, right? That's where I get back to, like, those are some, for me, when I look at who I vote, way most people vote is they say, what do I think? And then, do these people think the way that I think? I believe that that's that is an ineffective way to choose candidates. In fact, I think that our tendency to vote that way is a large factor behind why we continue to get leaders that we don't like. I think that the first thing that you should be looking at is, does he actually have the skills? Would he actually be good at being an executive? Being able to make changes when things aren't going well is a really, really big one. This is the one that Joe Biden has been so terrible with, because he has so many policies that he's implemented since the beginning of his term that are going absolutely terribly. His slant on the economy is terrible. Everybody knows it. People don't like it. You know, like they say, do you trust Joe Biden on the economy? It's like 60% say no. And yet he doesn't change it. He's doubling down. He's like trying to say, oh, no, we just need to push it harder. We just need to, actually it is really good. Nobody's buying it. Joe Biden lacks the ability to do a U-turn, to change things when his policies aren't working. The border is going dismally. It's absolutely terrible. Why aren't they changing it? No, instead they're turning around and they're willing. Maybe that's because on that one he thinks maybe it is having exactly the effect that he wants. I don't know. Okay. How do you switch over? Would RFK Jr. do that? Because I'm not convinced that he is. But at the same time, I don't really think he's a serious candidate. I don't think that RFK Jr., if RFK Jr. thought that he was like a real presidential contender and that there was actually a chance that he would be president, probably he would say things a little bit differently, But since it's just a symbolic campaign against an incumbent, maybe you say things to kind of like stir the pot, I guess. So from that respect, I guess RFK Jr. is getting the job done. But would he be a good president now? It's kind of tough because I can't think of really anybody on the Democrat side right now that is showing really effective leadership qualities. Maybe Gavin Newsom is good at I don't know. I mean, his policies are so terrible, it's hard to look past his policies. But the Republicans aren't very good either. I think Ron DeSantis has the things. He's done really well in Florida. So from that respect, Ron DeSantis seems to have the qualities that I would tend to look for. But I don't know if he has what it takes to win. I mean, he definitely doesn't. He definitely doesn't seem so far that he has what it takes to beat Donald Trump. Maybe he has what it takes to beat, Joe Biden. But that's a pretty low bar, But Ron DeSantis' stage presence is terrible. His interpersonal is terrible. It's almost, I'd say it's bordering on autistic. I don't think like they always say Mitt Romney is stiff, right? But I can't think of another presidential candidate where they weren't just stiff, they were just like outright awkward and something, like the way that he smiles, there's something not right with it, man. His fake smile is so bad. Those are things you can fix, though. Maybe before things are done, he fixes it. I'm not going to hold out too much hope, though. You guys got me going on politics, and now, like, all of my thoughts on politics are I'm just going to go ADHD off on it. So now I'm just thinking about the whole... I think it was in Michigan, they were moving to try and remove Donald Trump from the ballot. If they really started doing that, like if they really went through with that and removed Donald Trump from the ballot in a way that prevented him from being able to win, that would be so damaging to the country, man. So damaging to the country. It's removing a candidate from the ballot without them having been convicted of anything is a bad idea. And I look at that movement and I'm kind of like, that's not going to happen. Like under normal circumstances, that's not going to happen. But the way that things have gone recently is they just go whole hog on it anyways. And so I guess the concern that they would do that is genuine, and it needs to be thought of as a real genuine threat that needs to be fought against. I don't know if it would hold up in the Supreme Court or anything, but man, come on. So damaging. It would be so damaging to the country if they go through with that thing. And Wisconsin is kind of a swing state, isn't it? Like, sometimes I get Michigan and Wisconsin mixed up, but Michigan is, yeah. Okay, so if they, let's see here. Let's just game this out, huh? Red, 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 red. Red, red. Let's make Arizona blue. If Wisconsin was blue, I guess they could afford to lose Wisconsin. Because it's basically like, right, Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. From my perspective, the country is already looking, well, it's looking terrible everywhere, though. like I said, it seems to me that the worldwide system has kind of created we have created a world where we don't get effective leaders, essentially. And I think that's it's kind of two parts. Number one is that the politics have become so nasty. Anybody that is, a good person doesn't, people that are really concerned about their reputation, they're not going to run for president. Like I'm sure that if I ran for office that I would just get all sorts of crazy. I don't feel like I have any kind of mud whatsoever, but I just know the way that the game is played. They find stuff. It's silly, inconsequential stuff, and they can make a mountain out of a molehill. It's just crazy. Like, who would want to run for office under those conditions? That's a big one. And so the only people that end up running are the people that are like full of themselves enough that they'll want to run no matter what. And then on top of that, to run, really, you have to be a rich person. You have to have, you have to have like this entrenched network of power, essentially, to ascend to a position like that. And the people that are, essentially, the way that we select our leaders is not a meritocracy, essentially. And so you keep getting at the lower levels of government, like at governor, I think it's still, you can get good people in there, but like at the national level, it just seems like the leader of every country in the world is an idiot. Not an idiot, but making big mistakes. Anyways, it looks to me like Trump could lose Wisconsin and Arizona and still eke by. But he'd have to get Georgia, North Carolina, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. And I'm not sure that you get Pennsylvania. So if it was... Let me make some of these dark blue. Makes it a little bit easier to see. Yeah. So basically, he has to get either one of Wisconsin or Pennsylvania. So if Wisconsin went through with that and he wasn't even on the ballot, then he would absolutely have to win in Pennsylvania. So it is the case that all they have to do is just get it done in Wisconsin and prevent him from being on the ballot there, and then it would be a successful tactic against him. But it would be very, very damaging. Like at that point, when you start rigging the game against the Republican candidate, I think that Republicans stop playing, and then that would be bad. That'd be very, very, very bad. Well, it looks like the treasuries are kind of pushing lower again today. And I would say it's a little slow, but there's been about 7,000 net contracts sold. I'm still a little bit weary about really trying to go in on like there's going to be a trend short until we have PMI. Although lately they've been front running every piece of news, so could be that the services PMI number is going to be high and they already kind of know it, and that's why they're selling it. I'm definitely seeing a sell side imbalance here, though, in the market orders. So some evidence of informed trading to the short side that we can't ignore. I don't necessarily have to trade on it, but I have to acknowledge that that's what the flow is. I wonder, though, also if weak leaders could also be another symptom of the weak culture that I've been talking about all week. I don't know. I don't think that I would ever have any way to prove it. What time is it? 7:13? I guess I went on a pretty good long rant there for that. I hope that you enjoyed that answer, Crypto Dictator, because it was, you're still around, so. Facebook files. White House peddled obvious foreign lies about disinformation dozen. You know, it's bad when Facebook employees call BS. Right. Dollar strength poses risk to China and global liquidity. Biden's Green Energy Inflation Reduction Act needs a bailout already. Oh, jeez. Surprise, surprise, subsidies were not enough to make Biden's energy products profitable. Good to hear from the non-conspiracy mindset. Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is that I follow news, and I see, not just follow news, but I go around to all the different communities. I'm trying, I tell you what, man, I'm trying to not spend as much time reading things online partly because I feel bored of it. Like, I just don't derive the same kind of pleasure that I did out of it that I did, like, say, in 2016. But it's, you know, and I think that ultimately it's not necessarily good for you. And if it's not actually being productive for you, then it used to be productive because sometimes something would come out of the woodwork and it actually ended up being true, and that ended up being useful, but hasn't been so much lately. But I read Patriots.win. I read white people Twitter. That's the new, man. It's so weird. The new left-wing bastion on the internet is white people Twitter, apparently. So it used to be that there was black people Twitter, and that subreddit was created just to post funny things that black people were saying on Twitter. Okay, so then they made white people Twitter, which was supposed to be like the same thing, but about white people, I guess. But it's just turned into like radical leftists complaining about radical leftist stuff all the time. And it's really weird. And oh my gosh, these people's view of reality is so distorted. Oh my gosh. But the view of reality of the guys on Patriots.win is distorted too. Oh my gosh. Oh, I bet those guys bother me so much because that's my team. You know, I'm a Republican. It bothers me when I'm seeing the people on my side seem to be out of sync with reality. That usually doesn't end well. Luckily, we're not as out of tune with reality as the left is, so maybe it'll work out. But so I read all of that stuff and I follow all of the conspiracy theories. Uzi says I have a normalcy bias, but I think that what it is I have an empirical bias. If you can't like prove it to me with actual data that I can inspect, I'm very skeptical about it. And so these, somebody on the internet sharing a rumor that crazy thing is going on under the covers in the, people within the people in power and all of that sort of stuff. You prove it. There's too many rumors on the internet, all contradictory. Why am I supposed to believe this one over another one? I think mostly people believe them just because they want to believe them, because it fits in with their view of the world, or it's favorable to them politically, or whatever the deal is, and that's why they tend to believe them. It's a normalcy bias, which uses empiricism as a gatekeeper. Okay, but why? How can I there's no other way to verify the veracity of something. Like, I just don't get this reading some random anonymous commenter on the internet and then thinking that they've got it right. No, because I think that if I was in, so if this was 1930s Germany, it would definitely be like, oh, well, the Nazis are committing genocide. Can you prove that? they didn't necessarily. Now, my understanding is that journalists and so forth did discover the Holocaust before the Americans went in, but nobody really listened to them or believed them, I guess. So it wasn't until the soldiers came in and they discovered, the extent of it that they were really like, oh my gosh. But for sure, early on, it would be like, yeah, can you prove that they're going to do this or you're going to do that? There are some things that we just can't prove. But again, why am I supposed to believe, conspiracy theories, right? just because a conspiracy theory can be right sometimes doesn't mean that it behooves us to go along to believe them and go along with them. Because again, at that point, why are you believing in the conspiracy theory? Right? Because it seems to me that we believe in the conspiracy theory because either A, it fits in with our cynical worldview. All government is corrupt, and there's this conspiracy theory that the world is ruled by some death cult or something, whatever it is, and then you believe it because you believe that the world and all leadership is corrupt anyways, right? Or you think it's favorable to you politically, which is to say, well, it's, this world cabal of the World Economic Forum or whatever is run by lefty climate activists. And ergo, believing in that is favorable to me politically from a conservative point of view, because it says that my conservative points of views are correct and that the effectiveness of the left is merely because of corruption, right? You have to have a way of determining the veracity of things that's actually effective. Empiricism, we know, is actually effective. Picking and choosing which rumors on the internet for us to believe, I have not yet, as of yet, seen evidence of that being effective, right? All you do is take observations of trends and speculation on endpoints and conspiracize it like anyone who notices these things thinks it's an eyes wide shut cabal working in a dark. Okay, so let's try and pick an example here then. What's the big conspiracy theory these days? I don't know. Like, okay, so can I say though, at this point, as I'm thinking about it, the controversial issues that have been debated in society, it's really, I've seen much more the case that we have empirical evidence to point to a certain conclusion, and the people in power tell us the exact opposite anyways. Oh my gosh. Like, do you see that open letter that a bunch of scientists wrote that said that climate alarmism is not justified? They didn't say that like the world is not warming and that maybe it's caused by humans. They didn't even touch that. They just said that the alarmism that we're seeing about it is not justified, and that many of the policies that we're seeing about it are not justified. And they're right. I mean, the empirical evidence, as far as I've seen, does suggest that the world is warming to some extent. And they have a pretty good argument, at least, that it's caused by humans. But then people turn it into, if we don't do something in the next 5 years, then we're all going to die, etc., etc., like Greta Thunberg says. That's not what the science says. Or they say you need to wear masks. Oh, the masks. The masks is the worst one. The masks is the worst one because, you know, they said maybe we should wear masks because here's how this happened. I mean, because I tell you what, I was not to toot my own horn or whatever, but I was at the forefront of the mask thing. Okay, because I consider myself an informed person, and I caught the wind that, you know, and it wasn't like rumors, it was like being reported by reputable outlets that there was discussion about making a recommendation of masks because there was some evidence that suggested that maybe it would be effective. Okay. And that evidence was primarily like, oh, you know, if you're breathing out, it does catch some of the particles and whatnot, right? Like that was their evidence to say, you know, it might be a good idea for us to recommend people to wear masks. Okay. So my wife was making masks and made like a few grand off of making masks and selling them to people. Okay. Because we were so early, because we were like the first people to do it and everything. She was really good at it. So I was at the forefront of the mask thing. Okay. But I also watched all of the data come in, and everything that I saw about it was basically like, when you look at it on an individual perspective, and this is what Fauci was trying to say, although I think he said it so terribly. Like if you put a mask on a person, does it catch and reduce the viral load that you're putting out into the environment? Yes. We do have substantial amount of evidence that suggests that it does that. But does the mask actually reduce the transmission of the virus in the general population? Does a population that's wearing masks do better than a population that's not wearing masks? No evidence to support that. And all of the studies that they've done on this so far, well, I wouldn't say all of the studies, but the best quality studies, the largest ones in the meta studies, suggest there's no difference. And probably the reason why that is because even though you're reducing the viral load, there's still so much of a viral load, like maybe only 1% of the viral load actually goes out there into the environment, but 1% is still so much that everybody catches it. That's really what it comes down like. That's just how contagious it was. So it doesn't matter, right? It's higher than 1%. Okay, I was just spitballing numbers to kind of help you understand. Like it's an issue of law of large numbers, right? Even 1% is still a lot and is enough to make people sick, right? So then what happened? Well, all of the leaders had already gone full ham on this. Were like literally putting people in, like arresting people over not wearing masks, and had made such a big deal and had like grabbed onto it so hard that they didn't feel like that they could reverse on it. They were so really the wives, or sorry, where did I just say that? Oh, the mask your wife made, for example, is probably closer to 75%. I don't know. They were double masks, so if that helps, but yeah, they refused to accept the science to save face. That's what happened. That's what happened on that one. And so most of the controversial issues that we've seen lately have been actually the empirical evidence says one thing and leaders are trying to tell us something else, and are picking and choosing which science to listen to. Yeah, we were talking about the conspiracy theory bias. So now it comes back. What is the conspiracy theory that we're supposed to believe in? Don't skip me, please. Francesco, if you had asked a question earlier, I don't think I saw it. And make sure that you don't put any URLs in your messages. Climate change? Well, I wouldn't call climate change a conspiracy theory, though. But that's where I come back to. Like that one is like very, very much like I think an argument about empiricism. It's just that people are taking the, you know, what the effect actually is, like, way beyond what the data actually says. Oh, I was asking about the source of the open letter on climate change. Sure. Scientists' letter, climate change alarmism. Wow, I'm actually having a hard time finding it. Zero hedge climate change. Oh, there we go. So just, I should note, I think that the original, like, source of this was the Epic Times was the one that, like, first put the story out, and I think that everybody was following them. Nah, I won't link that one. I'll link the Zero Hedge article. So here's the Zero Hedge article. Now, granted, that's just, you know, a bunch of so-called scientists, you know, saying something. But, you know, I read the letter and I agree with it. So, like, I'm not disputing that climate change is happening, and I'm not disputing that it could be human caused. What I am disputing is the alarmism that is happening around it. People saying that, like, human civilization is going to collapse because of climate change, or, you know, we need to do X thing, or those things just aren't true. Those things just aren't, they are not backed by the science. Yeah. It's going to be a cold winter this year, and we're just looking at my... Yeah. Well, it's like they blame all of the weather on climate change now. It's like, you don't remember there being extreme weather as a kid? Like the thing that I find so funny is that, from my perspective, the weather is way more mild than it was when I was a kid. I remember when I was a kid, it snowing like 4 feet. I remember it snowing 4 feet when I was a kid. I remember, what was the big hurricane? Not Katrina. I mean, Katrina was bad, but before that, there was a Category 5 hurricane that hit Florida that was really, really bad. And I don't know if there's ever been a hurricane that's quite matched that since. I want to say it was a guy's name and it started with an H. I'll never forget Shepherd Ship saying, "Oh, I don't remember which storm, but if it moved X miles to the west, everyone's dead. You and your family are dead." Jeez. Personally, I hope they cancel the European law that bans the selling of internal combustion engines in 2030. Love me those sweet. Well, I agree. This law is a bad idea. Oh my gosh. Oh, this is one that we haven't talked about, but and I wouldn't say that like I'm an expert in electric vehicles or anything, but here's the research that I've done on this subject. A mandated move over to electric vehicles would be an absolute disaster for the West for a number of reasons. Number one, there is not enough infrastructure to support it. It's quite, it requires a lot of electricity to charge these cars. Most homes and places do not have the electrical components necessary to be able to have a charging station. you're not going to be able to make, not, you know, you're going to have to make a station where like everybody takes their cars and like it's just not practical. You just can't do it. Not without like some huge technological improvements, you know, like graphene batteries or something like that. Okay. Number two, we don't have the rare earth minerals necessary to build that many electric vehicles. So you're going to create like these huge shortages in things like lithium and cobalt. And there's people in other countries mining these things in like artisan mines. It's oh my gosh, just the most awful conditions you can possibly imagine, all for your electrical vehicle. So it's immoral to be basing everything on such a like you're going from oil to just absolute slave labor. Okay, it's just crazy. But then the last one, and the one that I think would really hurt us is that American and European car makers cannot compete with Chinese car makers on electric vehicles because of the advantages that the Chinese have with rare earth minerals. So it would also hurt us economically. So yes, this policy that the European Union wants to put in that will force people to move over to electric vehicles is a crazy policy. It's crazy enough that I'm very skeptical that it will actually go into effect when they say. But it's far off. You know, one of the things that they do is they put the, you know, they'll make an agreement and they'll put some goal like really far off in the future, and then when it comes closer, they'll renege on it and nobody notices, you know. So they get their virtue signaling in, but then they never actually do it. It's likely that that's kind of a situation like that. Decent selling in ES spot gamma set 4500 would be sticky until option expiration. Well, that was pretty good selling on the open, that's for sure. Although I didn't really see the volume on it. Which would be better spent on other types of research and development that could produce far better results in reducing CO2 output. The whole thing is just crazy. You really like the thing that's I find so sad is that there are viable alternatives, and for political reasons, they're not going to give them the chance, right? Like natural gas. Natural gas is a viable, clean alternative, but that's still like similar to drilling for oil, so they don't like that. Nuclear energy is a viable alternative. You know, like if we had nuclear energy and we were constantly building nuclear power plants, then maybe we would have the infrastructure to support it, but they're terrified of nuclear power. Is it true that China canceled 100 billion? I hadn't heard that. Electric cars run by computers. Well, okay, but you know what? Like, gas cars run by computers can also be shut down, probably. So I'm not sold on the idea that they only want us to move over to electric cars because they can control us. Although there certainly are people out there, like, this isn't a conspiracy theory. I'm not saying that it's going to happen. I'm just saying that there are powerful people out there that are advocating for systems that would basically prevent you from traveling. They want you to live in this micro city that has everything that you need, and you don't leave that micro city so that there's less transportation, there's less pollution. It's quite these people are proposing pretty grand, extravagant, wild things that just don't make sense. And the problem is that they're like people in power, so like there actually are chances that it could happen. In Italy, it is quite a common thing to let people decide on controversial technical topics of which the broad public has little to no knowledge. Yeah. Well, this is the ultimate flaw in our society today, is that in order to make these sophisticated decisions, people need to be informed, and the public by and large is not informed. And that goes from every level to political referendums to economic things, right? Like people don't do research and look at the companies and decide which companies to invest in. No, they say, what's the most popular stock? Tesla, and they put their money there. Right? Or Apple. Apple's the other popular one. I'm an Apple hater. Full-on Apple hater. The one that drives me crazy lately is because I got this watch. This watch was like, you know what? Let's just get like a cheap watch. Let's see if we actually end up wearing it regularly. I just really like this watch. It's a Casio Royale, essentially, is what they call it. I know. If you're into watches, you'd be able to recognize it just from that. $50 watch. $50 watch, cheap watch. But I just like it so much. I'm like, oh, that's all I need to do. And then these Apple nerds are like, well, why don't you just get an Apple Watch? No, because I want like something physical that's not just like another computer trying to tap me into the matrix. Because I appreciate people making things on their own. Now this one, this is a digital watch, so it's maybe not quite the same thing as like if it was a mechanical watch. But I bought like the case and everything from a person online. So I appreciate small people making products that are good quality things and so forth. And I despise this every attempt to try and get us plugged in as much as possible, because the more that I look at it, the more that I realize that we are just not. It's just not good for us. Most people just aren't capable of handling it correctly. So why wear a watch? Because because I think that there's kind of more of a sentimental and philosophical value to it, right? Like I'm saying, maybe we shouldn't have our phones attached to us all the time. It's hard. I use my phone more than anybody, but maybe that's not a good thing, right? 2, it's nice to have it just on your wrist so you can quickly look at it. Also, this one beeps at the top of the hour. I find that so useful to keep track of time. Oh, I find it's worth wearing just for that. 3, it looks cool. I love it. Just wait for the Billy G Nano 5G tech in partnership with Elon Neuralink. Yeah. I mean, I would be one of the first people in line to get like a computer attached to my head, but I'm also kind of concerned that like there might be something with like the older that you are. Okay, hold up. Okay, so we're about to get some numbers here in about 3 minutes. And a large offer just showed up at 31 and was shoving things down. That's a little bit suspicious to me. Okay, so Bailey's Bank of England is speaking. So maybe could have something to do with him. Maybe you can give some book recommendations for books. Well, so when it comes to order flow, there's not a better book than that, right? So when we're getting into other books, we're talking about different things. You know, like machine learning, stuff about bonds specifically. Well, I'm not going to participate in that, but I'm a little bit... That definitely caught my attention, let's say. The large order pulled, but it definitely caught my attention. Well, let's turn my notifications on here because it looks like they're dealing with an issue, and I don't want those to be constantly popping up at the bottom of the screen. I may need to take a trade here, so. You know, I really didn't get to the conspiracy theories. Seems like there's been a conspiracy theory out there that was like really contentious and was like a big deal, but I can't think of what it is. It does seem like the conspiracy theories have been less of a thing since Joe Biden has been president. Okay, it looks like they came back up and the liquidity is pulling for this news. By the way, they were looking for S&P Services PMI final to be 51 and composite to be 50.4. Basically at 255. Probably going to get a big move off of this. Even if it's in line. Okay, so it is, the services is lower than expected. 50.5 versus 51. Composite 50.2 versus 50.4. So that pushes up a little bit, but only a little bit. Like, I would be willing to put the offer out like there. Bring the spread in. But the laptop was a big one for me. Oh my gosh. That one, well, that one wasn't a conspiracy theory either, though. Oh, that one pisses me off, dude. Because here's what happened was that came out and everybody's like, it's fake. And so what I did is I went and I looked at the emails, and when you send an email to and from Google, there is like a, well, I know, but just listen. There's like a key that's included in there, everyone, that you can, you know, there's an asymmetrical key. So we don't have the private key, but we have the public key, so we can verify that it was come from Google and whatnot, right? So I went and I looked at those emails and I did the key verification for them, and they were genuine. They were real emails, and that confirmed it for me. That was okay. These are genuine, accurate. This is real stuff, And then, yes, the government did come out and call it a conspiracy theory, but like that was the thing. We had solid empirical evidence that said that it was real. That if you looked at the actual evidence, so this was another one where if you looked at the empirical evidence, you would know that it was true, and then you had people in power coming out and telling you the opposite and lying to you. And that time they lied. They knew. They just straight up lied to us to influence an election. It's outrageous. It's absolutely outrageous. So I don't consider that one a conspiracy theory. You know, like the conspiracy theory to me would be, you know, some supposition about something that's going on that has no empirical evidence to back it. Oh, it's a conspiracy that that they did it to influence an election. They did it to save. That's influencing an election. Hey, listen, everybody influences the election. You say things to people that could potentially affect people's. Everybody influences election. Lying to influence an election is wrong. It's a great, great crime. One of the worst crimes I think that you can do. Hypothesis is an educated guess. Theory is a fact not yet proven by virtually so as proven by recent events. Okay, so like the one easy conspiracy theory I can think of right now is all of the stuff around aliens, right? So like some people are saying that it's that the government is actually allowing all of this stuff and letting it be talked about in Congress and so forth so that people will believe in aliens so that they can potentially use it to like offload blame for certain research projects and things like that. That I would say is a conspiracy theory. They're not getting it out of nowhere. There was this letter that's been uncovered where they kind of suggested that was the case, but you know, the CIA says just about everything. It doesn't mean that they actually went forward with it. That I would say is a conspiracy theory. And so to me, it seems silly to assume that that's correct and then just ignore all of the other headlines that come out about it, because that's what a lot of people want to do. Is they say, oh no, the alien thing comes out when they're trying to distract you about other stuff, for instance. You know, yeah, you find it interesting, but also don't look at it in the news. The more that I looked at that, though, like, the more interesting it got, because there is definitely something going on there that we, the public, don't know about. Whether the government knows about it or not is a different question. But there is enough. There was this one thing, for instance, where, oh my gosh, I'm talking about this stuff. In Texas, there was a wide swath of people that saw a UFO. I mean, like hundreds of people. They saw an extremely large object and like a military jet chasing after it. And then the military said, no, that didn't happen. We didn't have any jets in that area that day. And then people found like the flight data and everything, and they had to renege and go like, okay, actually we did have a jet over there, right? And a bunch of people saw it. We don't know what it was. We don't know what it is. So this is like there are enough instances of that like there is something going on that we, the public, don't know about. Whether the government knows what's going on is a different question, because it might be an unidentified object to the military too. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's aliens, but like I don't know how else you'd explain some of these things. So it's definitely interesting to me just because it's like the edge of our knowledge. Like there's definitely knowledge to be had. It's just, what is the actual knowledge? I can't say. But you notice that I'm very hesitant to go into outright conspiracy theories, you know? Like it's one thing to say, well, here are the different possibilities for what that was. It was something made by another country. It was an alien aircraft. It was some sort of aerial phenomenon that we don't understand. Some natural physics sort of a thing. You know, that's one thing. But then when people start going into conspiracy theories, they're like, there's this cabal. I heard this rumor that there's this global cabal that are coordinating with the aliens, and they had this meeting. And then what happens is you start stacking conspiracy theories on top of each other, right? And that's where you really start to go into crazy stuff. What we know is 50 years behind? Probably. I'm gonna bet though that the things that the government that is creating are both less fantastical and more fantastical than our imagination. Probably not going to match up with what we think they are. Let's put it that way. And you know, you're just saying like what it could be. That aircraft that they saw could have been just something the U.S. government created and was testing. But like here's the thing. Okay, like the Tic Tac, for instance. Okay, we have this radar data for a Tic Tac object floating around in the air that is going insanely fast and starts and stops instantly and does all of this stuff. Okay, I'm extremely doubtful that any man-made organization in the world possesses that kind of technology. That is technology that is like hundreds of years more advanced than what we're capable of. Not like 50 years advanced, you know? So that one, that whatever the Tic Tac is, man, I really don't think that we humans have the technology to create those. I don't think that it's like a Chinese probe or something that... So I'm not familiar with Thunderfoot. There's if this is what I'm thinking it is, it's not sufficient. So, yeah, so these ones. Yeah, okay, so there's these ones where they were saying that what you were looking at in the video was actually just a bird or another plane, and trying to explain why it looks like what it looks. Okay. The problem is that they have sensors from 3 different military instruments tracking this thing come from under the water to above the water and moving around. And so they have the data to show exactly where it moved and how fast it was moving. And you just cannot explain those. So like, this is somebody trying to debunk it without having all of the data that the military has. So I you know, any of those debunking of the Tic Tac video that relies purely on the video itself, I think is insufficient to debunk it. Because again, the military had like all of this data and they were looking at it and were like, they can't explain it. There's no way anything could move that quickly. So I don't think that that's a debunking of it. Planes emit signals that we utilize for our anti-aircraft targeting systems. If it were definitely a plane, we'd know it. Well, but it could be a private plane that had that disabled, or from another foreign country doing something they weren't supposed to be doing. You don't disable it. Well, I'm just saying. It could, the possible explanations could be that it's like a Chinese craft or something, but I don't think that any human organization on Earth possesses the technology to move the way that did. That's just my guess. If you want your plane to be able to communicate or be able to locate itself in space, you don't turn up. Anyways. What was it gonna... So the thing that had to happen more recently is there's this video of alien UFOs flying around a 747, and then the 747 and the alien craft just like disappearing. And you know, to me it looks like CGI. To me it looks like CGI, but like the UFO subreddit spent like a whole month like talking about this video and trying to verify or debunk it. And I was just like, you guys, this is ridiculous. Like, absolutely nothing in here to suggest that it's actually genuine. The whole thing was weird. And that was a conspiracy. So then it was, the conspiracy theory was that the Malaysia flight that disappeared was disappeared by aliens, and that's why the elites are all you know, concerned and so forth. Okay. Hold on. What's this? Okay, I think we're okay. So here, there. Now we gotta focus. Now we gotta focus because this is the big one. U.S. ISM Services PMI consensus estimate 52.5. Yeah. You're right. These discussions are for Monday nights. The discussion about empiricism and when it's appropriate and whatnot is an important one. I don't feel like we have a good example case here. I'm trying to think of what the last one that we argued about was, but I just can't remember it right now. So here we go. Ooh. Okay. ISM was 54.5 versus 52.5. Oh, that's curious. Services at 54.5 is maybe a little concerning. What does LFG mean? There you go. Jeez. Looks like looks like the 2-year really shot up there, huh? Oh, looking for group. I get you. I understand now. Whoa. Whoa. That was big. Stop run there, man. I'm probably getting out a little bit too early, but I'm really concerned about washback on this for some reason. Remixable 100. Hey, bro, how's it going? New name. Oh, there was a little further. Although it's not moving. That's interesting. Dude, okay, look, there's somebody over here in the 30-year. There we go. So what price did I get out at? 284. Still there. Yeah. Okay. I think I was seeing the whole forming correctly. Yeah. No, I think you're reading it correctly, Walter. You totally got it. Services, PMI, higher than expected, suggests rates continue to stay high, and that's bad for equities. And also, stronger dollar, bad for equities. Stronger dollar, why? Because interest rates are higher. So more money will want to come over and take advantage of that higher interest rate. And yes, the dollar took off. They went from 104.6 before the news to a high of 104.96. So almost 105. So dollar very, very strong there. You know what? I think that trade that I just caught there, I think I have to chalk that one up to luck a little bit. Just a little bit of luck. Because I got a really good price on my exit. Oh, I'm not new. I asked you last week whether you think this rally... Oh, yes. I remember that now. Totally remember that. Okay. Let's see if I'm not seeing any discussion. What's this? Oh, that's Bitfinex talking about finance. Nick Timmeros, the Bank of Canada held its policy rate steady at 5% after increases at its prior two meetings. Bank of Canada remains concerned about the persistence of underlying inflationary pressures and is prepared to increase the policy interest rate further if needed. It looks like flattening, like the short end of the curve got crushed. Here's why it's still about where I got out. Well played, news perfectly this time. Well, I was really, really scared about like trying to take it afterwards and everything. I'm surprised that it went the way that it did because I caught a limit order in there, but that I think a lot of that was just me kind of reading the flow, you know? Like I know that the flows are going to be mostly sell treasuries, buy interest rates, and I kind of saw a spot to get in and out, and I could have gotten the 20 at one point though, probably, if I had a limit order sitting out there. So $15 is good. Yeah. Short, small one. Problem is that could go further. In fact, well, let me look at a couple of things here first before I say that. 23.5. I see. So 23.5 is the rollover gap. So that might be why you're seeing a little bit of a stop right there. There, I'll come back over here to the charts and show you. So there's the rollover gap here. This gap. We came right to it. It bounced. But, you know, there's going to be this area and this area and this area. That would be, you know, it's already a pretty big move for today, though. So I'm not entirely convinced that it's, you know, that news will cause a trend day. Could happen. We're getting a good pullback. Actually, back to where my original position was, isn't it? 267. Not quite, but close. It's getting close to it. So I'm definitely correct, or I definitely was reading that correctly about the degree of like pullback that we could have, and that I should be concerned about it. It looks to me like this is, you know, another one of those very dollar-driven moves. So which price for us to try and catch if we think it's going to go lower gets really hard, because we can't rely on the flows over here as much. Are you profitable in this? So the word profitable can be really complicated, but I'm going to say, like, over the time frame that I'm concerned about, no. I was until last month. Last month was really bad. So, like, for the year, I'm slightly negative. And it also kind of matters, like, how much do you want to factor in commissions and things like that. Because for me, the commissions are a much larger portion of my profits because I trade so small, right? But if you were coming in and you were, if I was trading like 10 contracts, it would be profitable, probably. Probably it would be profitable. But, you know, I'm not trading 10 contracts, so who knows? But what I would say is that when I'm not profitable, I'm pretty break even. And if you can just get yourself to break even, that's a good spot to be. But it depends. I mean, the issue is this. So, like, the way that a typical retail trader thinks about this sort of a thing is, okay, I have a chart pattern. I'm going to look for this chart pattern, and then whenever I see it, I'm going to trade it based on these rules. And then you ask them, oh, okay, well, does that actually work? Well, I don't have the ability to go in and backtest it and do this empirically, so I'm just going to rely on, is this person making money? If this person is making money, then I want to try doing the same strategy that he's doing, right? Our perspective, or what we're doing, is a little bit different because we're doing discretionary trading based on our interpretation of what the flows will be from the pieces of information that we're getting. For instance, this ISM number. Probably going to cause net selling. It has. It's been about 20,000 contracts net sell since the news came out. That's a pretty big sell. Will it turn into a trend day today? I'm not sure. I think there's a possibility of it, though. So we're going to be watching and seeing if I can sort that out. Okay. So will you always be profitable with that? Well, you can't. Once you understand that that's what you're doing, you can't sit there and say, because I was profitable in the past, I'm going to be likely to be profitable in the future. I mean, that's never the case in trading, but it's just so much more obvious here with what we're doing, right? And what's the key thing that's going to be the differentiator, right? It's going to be how well we understand that market. If we understand that market and we have the edge, like we know things before other people and we're better informed, then we're going to make money, right? And if we're not as informed, then we're not going to make money. So, you know, last year did pretty good because in 2021, because those interest rates, you know, there was like huge changes in interest rates, and that was beneficial to us. It's not going to be like that every year. It's going to be a different market next year. And, you know, will we understand that market and be able to deal with it? I don't know, right? So then you have to go back and it's like, well, okay, so if you can't do that, then what is the reason that I should learn the things that you're teaching or not? Because at the end of the day, I am teaching things. I'm not like selling it as an education course, but I have a bunch of videos for you to watch. Well, my argument is the things that I'm telling you about the market are things that are empirically proven. So there are, you know, empirically backed academic research studies showing stylized behaviors in the markets and in order flow in particular that are extremely well proven that we can try to use to our benefit in trading. So are you using it correctly? Is there actually an edge for it as a retail trader? You know, can you actually take advantage of that? Well, that's up to you. You have to take that information and translate it into actual trading. But the actual facts about the market that we're basing it all off of, that's proven. And nowhere else that you look in the trading world do you see anything even remotely close to that. Like, they won't even give you stats on their setups. They don't even backtest things. It's just bonkers. But probably because anybody that backtests these things goes back and looks at them and says, oh, it's random. I think there is an actual edge in front-running news, almost like an option we can try and work a position before news release and set stop to cap risk. I guess you're right. I think you get a better reward than risk with 50% of chance of, yeah. But it's not, you're right. You're totally right. Because retail, the issue is, at the end of the day, and this is at every level of society. The issue is that people don't want to do the work. People don't want to be informed. People don't want to have to get into the complicated math. People don't want to have to get into macroeconomics and following the economic numbers and all of the other things that go into this. It's a complicated thing. People want to be able to just look at a picture, and when the picture looks like what they think it's supposed to, they take a trade. That's simple, easy, repeatable. That's what they want, and it's a complete misunderstanding of how the market is, because it treats the market as this beast that just moves where it wants to move, right? That the market goes to the price that it's supposed to based on the fundamentals, and there's nothing you can do about that, right? And that's why there's going to be a pattern. So, well, people, they follow certain patterns, so you're going to see those patterns in the economics, and so the charts are going to follow those patterns. That's not how the market works. The way the market works is you buy it, it goes up, you sell it, it goes down. Every order has impact, and if you sell 20,000 contracts, that's going to move that instrument. Even in the treasuries, 20,000 contracts, that moves them. And that's what causes the movement. So you trading it affects where it goes. That changes everything, right? Because if you are trading on a pattern, you see that pattern, eventually you're going to size up large enough that pattern's going to disappear. So you can't, it's impossible to have these patterns that everybody knows about and remain profitable. That's why all of these things, the easy stuff, like looking at a chart and seeing a pattern, that the edge has already been taken away. That's why it acts that way. Well, there's also some systemic trading along fundamentals and technicals. Yeah. It goes back to the fact that orders move markets, so having a position before orders start moving the market. Yes. So yeah, that's not something that I don't really talk about a whole lot, but is a very important part of how I trade. I want to get in when it's slow. I want to get in before things start moving, before the flurry of orders start coming out. And then when the flurry of orders does come, that's when I'm getting out. And if you're really good at just finding the points where it's kind of quiet, that alone can take you pretty far. The only issue with trying to quote front run news, like take a position before the news comes out, is that the tails on it are huge. If whether you win or lose on those, you're going to win or lose a ton, and it's a lot more than most retail traders' accounts can handle. And, even if I was a professional, if I was, trading a $50 million account or something like that, and I was trying to just outright bet on the news, I would have to have a bunch of my own research that strongly suggested that the number was going to be one way or the other before I would even start to try and make that kind of a bet. But then if I did think I knew which way it was going to go, 100%. I'm going to wait for a quiet spot before the news to get in. Not when everything's going crazy. Oh, my dad's calling me. That's kind of odd. Why would he call this early? Hold on. But I tell you what, here's the other side of it, right? I think the thing that we understand that almost nobody else in the trading world gets, they either they deny it or they just don't understand the importance of it. And that is that orders have strong impact. You think about, so if you accept, okay, The orders move the markets. If you trade things, 20 contracts, it's going to move the market. Okay. I'm saying that how far 20,000 contracts moves the market is a lot more than any person would intuitively think. About 5 times more than any person would intuitively think. And that means that it's easy to remove a pattern from the market. It's easy to move the market far away from what fundamental value is. That's really important. Right? Or the meta orders list. Yep, exactly. Like I think the best example where I saw people as like, I really feel like that if people understood this simple concept, that they would do things differently, right? The number one instance of this was the whole Elon Musk sells 10% of his Tesla stake thing, right? Because when it happened and he said he was going to do it, like there's all these guys in Tesla that were like, well, okay, he's going to sell it, but it doesn't change the fundamentals of the company. And then people are like, well, yeah, but the fundamentals say that it's overvalued. And they're like, no, you just don't know how to value it correctly because it's not just a car company. Okay, what would be a good model? But the reality is that the stock doesn't follow the fundamentals. The stock follows the orders. If Elon Musk is going to sell 10% of the shares, you can go in and you can calculate pretty accurately how much it is going to move. Now, I don't know what the Y factor is for it, but to be able to estimate ahead of time, nor would I know how many orders he would sell in a single day. But if you go back and you look at those statements that he had to release where he said, I sold this much this day, this much this day, okay? You go and you look at the average volatility of Tesla and the number of contracts he sold, the average volume during that time, and you do the formulas, it comes out almost exactly. The estimates come out almost exactly to the number of contracts that he sold. It is incredibly accurate. So much more accurate than anything else I've seen in trading, at least. And it was a big impact. It was it started the decline of the stock. Started the decline, and everybody was like in denial, like saying that like it wasn't even going to move things. Can you believe? It's just, and it's just all based on this lie that we've told ourselves that the market is informationally efficient, that stock prices reflect all available information. It doesn't, not even close. Not even close. You got to remember, all models are wrong. Some models are useful. It's useful to come and look at the economy from the perspective of prices reflect all available information, make models based off of those assumptions, and then look at some of the properties of those models. And there are some things that we can learn about the market from that. But that doesn't mean that it's true that the current prices are reflective of all information. And once you realize that it's not, and you find the models that prove that it's not, there's all sorts of other useful stuff that you can get out of that too. And what happened was we said, well, we need to say that to get people involved in the markets. And, to understand why capitalism is beneficial and useful and so forth. But we didn't tell them enough to actually participate in the market, to actually invest and trade well and so forth. And so we're still kind of living this lie. That's why. At least that's what I think it is. So we've latched onto this story in the 80s and we're not willing to give it up. Doesn't mean that capitalism is bad. Doesn't mean that our economy is bad. Just means that it doesn't work the way that most people think that it is. And that means that there's a lot of opportunity for you, the average person, to become more informed than everybody else on this issue and take advantage of it. For the ES, It has been estimated that 70% of the flow is just the market reacting to it. Yes. Yes. Like, a large portion of activity is endogenous. Is the word that they use, which means the market reacting to itself. Yes. But the biggest movers of the flow out there are the index funds, which is kind of wild too, right? Like, I don't have the data to predict what they do, but I'm pretty sure that these quant funds do, and that's how they make their money. I think is a large portion of it is they're just front running the indexes. I would think, and the thing is that those guys, here's something that I think might happen eventually. I hope it doesn't happen this way, but it might happen, okay? The larger public becomes aware of the edges that are available here that the quants are doing to front run the indexes. These quant firms, they know how to size their trades appropriately to take advantage of the amount of edge that's out there so that they don't move the market too far, right? If the larger public got a hold of these edges, they would wipe that edge out. And if the larger public wiped that edge out, it could potentially ruin index investing. See what I'm saying? That would be a distressing world for a lot of people if all of a sudden index funds weren't performing. Could happen. But I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think that the larger public's ever going to catch on. I hate saying things like that because it's like, oh, you just don't really have a whole lot of confidence in people, do you? No, not on these kinds of. The more sophisticated it gets, the more it's like the larger public just doesn't understand it. And I've tried to break into that and change that, and I've realized that it's just not possible. And the best that I can do is just take advantage of it myself. And so the larger society is probably never going to catch on and reap the benefits that would be had from society understanding this. Okay, so we did have that strong pullback, and we're kind of pushing back down towards the lows. The volume is kind of petering out a little bit. The 5-year did make a new low, but not the 30 or the 10. And also the 30 pulled back quite a bit more. So there's quite a bit of flattening in all of this, which is not very advantageous for us over here in the treasuries. That is to say that if I were to take a trade at 4.28 and it did go, I can't necessarily expect to get like 30, 40, 50 ticks on it. It's probably going to be more like 10 to 20 because the spread is not in our favor. So there again is where me taking the quick profit was pretty good trade. I probably could have taken it from the backwash and maybe made another $10, but that's okay with that one. That one's a tough, risky trade. I don't know if I actually would have gotten that one through very well or not. But we kind of need to keep an eye on it here because now we get to find out if it's going to go lower or not, and we can see what the flows are if they breach that. Because if they breach that, I think that there's probably another good, they might double the move. Like it would be like to 16 at the very least. But we'll see. We'll see. What happened to the classic mic that you had? It stopped working, man. So when I bought that mic, it was broken and I went and had it serviced. And they had to like replace the internals on it. And then one day, the kids were in here, and so I think they might have bumped it or something like that. But that thing's supposed to be a tank, and it broke again. So I think it was probably like the same problem. It wasn't working. And I was like, you know what? I was never completely happy with that mic anyways because of the form factor of it and so forth. This fits the arm and everything else better. You put the windscreen over it so you don't really get a whole lot with the plosives. Plosives. I mean, I can if I really... But under normal speaking... Right, it's fine. And so I think overall, it's a better mic. The only thing, though, is that it doesn't have an off button built into it. I kind of would like to get... Okay, so now they're back to my price. They might go further now. I kind of want to get like a mixer that would have a button to mute myself instead of doing it through OBS like that. So... But I'm also kind of like, I don't want to spend money on that right now. Because we've been saving up for new hardware. But new hardware will probably be expensive. I guess I haven't really gone through and priced it to see if I even have the cash. I think that I do have the cash. I definitely have the cash with... Jigsaw hasn't paid out their affiliate stuff in like 2 months. I don't know what the deal is with that, but with the affiliate fees that I do have, that definitely puts me over the top. And then we could definitely build it. But I'm also kind of wondering if it's better for me to wait a few months for December to do it, right? So they come at that 22.5. They're slowing down a little bit, but you always got to be cautious. So when I start to see it slow down like that, that's often like, okay, it's going to reverse or whatever the deal is here. But when you're that close, you can't rest easy, right? Because all it takes is 1 or 2 ticks down, and then all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, I got to sell it, right? What? Kevin McCarthy retweets the GOP Oversight Committee. Joe Biden's VP staff colluded with Hunter's business partner on Burisma corruption media response. James Comer is calling the National Archives to provide complete and unredacted documents related to the office of Vice President colluding. Oh wow, this is a ton here. James Comer is calling on the National Archives to provide complete and unredacted documents relating to the office of the Vice President colluding with the Biden family and their business associates. In one example, on December 4th of 2015, Eric Sherwin, a longtime Biden family business associate, wrote to Kate Bedingfield in the office of the Vice President, providing quotes the White House should use in response to media outreach regarding Hunter Biden's role in Burisma. That is bad, actually. Well, the reason that that's bad is because that directly contradicts things that Joe Biden has said in the past about it. Russia's Wagner to be declared a terrorist organization by the UK, reports the BBC. The order is expected to come in force on September 13th, after which it would be a criminal offense to belong or promote the group, arrange or address its meetings, and carry its logo in public. Punishable by up to 14 years. Wow. 14 years. Still sitting there. I don't know. Maybe they can't do it. Okay, sorry. Amir, you asked me a question, and I totally glossed over it. Which asset in futures markets has the lowest fees? So if you want to talk about like the tick to commission ratio, that is how much you make for each tick, or how much you make on your average move relative to the commissions that you have to pay, the 30-year is the best. Because in the 30-year, you can regularly make $250 to $500 on a move, and your commission is like $3 or something, like less than that. It's like $2. The commissions in the treasuries are cheaper than everything else because they want people to trade them. Like I think it's like ES, it's like 250 around turn, and the treasury it's more like 150 around turn, something like that. You finally joined in the future market? Oh. Well, even though the 30-year is like the biggest mover, I prefer the 10-year because the 10-year is just much more intentional. So that's what I trade, is the 10-year. So now that it's been about 30 minutes, let's survey the damage. S&P 500 has lost about 25 points since the open. Treasuries are up about 3 to 5 basis points, depending on where you're anchoring from. But off of that news, it was 3 basis points. They are backing off. It looks like they're not able to make a new low, at least not yet. You always got to be careful about that one, though, because they'll do this thing where they're like, okay, what you want to think is it's going to go down and then pull back and then down, and oh, they can't get any further. I guess we're going to have a reversal now, right? And so what they do is they'll do this. Oh, no, we can't make it. I guess there's going to be a reversal, and they let you all buy, and then boom, down to new lows. This is kind of situation where they would pull this kind of trick. So yeah, so I wasn't, I kind of need to think about that a bit more. I do want to build a new machine. Oh, yeah, that's what that was about. So one of the things that happened to me over the weekend is I've been testing this laptop dock, and it is not compatible with my center monitor, which is quite an old monitor. And I like it because it was a very quality monitor when I got it and everything, but it's just too old. So I've kind of been considering replacing it and giving it to one of the kids downstairs, because one of them has a really awful monitor. But I don't know. For some reason, I don't want to do it. I don't think that the monitor would come before that, so I'm just gonna have to steal what my son's monitor for the testing. But so I was kind of looking at it, I was like, should I do the extra monitor and get something that's really color accurate, or should I just not touch it, see if there's any good deals around Christmas? Well, that's what I should be doing, is seeing if there's any good deals around Christmas. Okay, so did you see that downtick? How all of the limit orders shuffled around when they lost 22.5? It's kind of quieted down now since then. That's not generating more market orders, but they definitely noted that downtick. Would definitely kind of scared a few people, let's say. What do you use for the screen recorder? Just OBS? So there was that other side, was that like I was, for the camera, you know, I was like saving it in 4K, essentially saving the 4K so that it would be easier for me to go afterwards and make videos. But one, I wasn't doing that, and two, it gave that particular the camera like a low frame rate, and it just drove me crazy. So I switched it back. And I'm wondering, like, okay, if I had a little bit better of a computer, would that go away and I could do everything in 4K? Or not? I don't know. Okay, back up to 23, I guess. I honestly, for some reason, I'm kind of feeling the call, like the call to go and take a trade, even though I don't think I have a very good read on whether or not we'll go to a new low or not. But I think that I just want to see a new low. I always love a good stop run. Yeah, let's just see. I think it's better for me to stay out of it for now, because I really don't know if they're going to go for new low. If they do break for new low, I could get involved afterwards. But then you got to be really careful, right? I guess the other thing is that I need to finish the desk. When I finish the desk, then I might have some thoughts on what I want to change about my setup. Because, yeah, the processor is old and everything, but... The other thing is that I got to get another rack mount case, and those are not cheap. What happened at 5:15 Eastern time? Nothing. I didn't see anything happen at 5:15. This week has been weird. I sat on my hands yesterday. Today might be the same. Well, probably what you're detecting there is volatility is just contracting. It's a really interesting situation, because things are kind of setting for volatility to contract going into the options expiration next week. But there are some big risk events next week. So there is a good possibility that if something crazy, you know, if CPI is bad or something like that, that the market is just going to like way overreact because they're not protected, right? If we get wrong here, it's likely to move. Yeah. I don't know. I think the risk that I'm taking here is maybe $5 to $10, but when I only made 15, you know, that's a lot of my profits. It's probably best to just kind of... Plus, I don't have much time left. You said, sorry, 3:15 Eastern time? And are you more concerned about... So that would be 1:15 my time. Oh, yeah, there was something overnight in the treasuries, but I'm not necessarily sure. Well, there was some stuff. Oh, you know what? That was probably the job owning from Japan. Yeah, let me come back over here and check. So I think we were talking about, well, let me pull it up here on this chart. Yeah, you're talking about this thing right here. Yep. there was a pretty big shift. Well, in all markets, really. Yeah, so the Bank of Japan came out and said a couple of things about, well, yes, you know, we are getting a little bit above 2% inflation now, but we need to make sure that that's sustained above that before we back off, you know, and change anything. And yeah, it was just, I think that's what was that move. So you can see here, like, they actually did tick a new low, but the place that we had available to us, 284, we're still sitting right there. We wouldn't be getting paid because of the spread, right? But they did do almost exactly what I said they would do, right? Oh, we're gonna reverse. Just kidding. You just think about it, like, they need to sell as many contracts as possible. What could they do to convince you to buy? Wait for that to happen first and then sell it. Right? When watching the treasuries, do you guys watch multiple yields or only the 10-year yields? Like you're trading ZB, do you watch the 30? As I was typing that, I was like, oh no, are they going down for new lows? But no, actually what's happening here is ZN went for new lows. ZB has barely moved at all and is still back at 119.06. So there's almost no selling on the 30-year end of the curve at all. It's all happening on the short end. That's really quite the amount of flattening that we're getting off of this is pretty strong. Are they doing an after she goes? Not so sure. There's a couple of big orders below us, like at 20, 16. Could go lower. I'm a little concerned by how much we're seeing the yield curve flatten. So we've definitely washed out the steepening that we had off of the non-farms. Not quite to the level where we've washed out the stuff that happened off of the JOLTS numbers. It was JOLTS, I think, that really pushed it there. Now we're flattened back. In other words, we flattened a ton today, but we haven't become flatter than we were last week. We're still steeper than last week. Well, before we get going here, let's see what Zero Hedge has. Services surveys signal soaring stagflation risks, with manufacturing surveys still in contraction and underlying components screaming stagflation as orders drop and prices pop. All eyes are on the bigger services sector surveys this morning, which are expected to slip lower in August. The U.S. S&P Global U.S. Services PMI disappointed, declining from 52.3 to 50.5 and below the 51 preliminary August print, weakest since January. Okay, I promise I'm not dyslexic. I'm just like, the words are coming out my mouth in the wrong order because I'm like reading too fast. The U.S. ISM services roared from 52.7 to 54.5, well above the 52.5 expected and the strongest since February. In case you wonder why these surveys can be so completely opposed, it is survey responses like this. A real estate worker said that overall conditions seem quite good, although there is definite slowdown in residential construction driven by rapidly increasing interest rates. A government worker said that prices have settled. Warnings of a possible recession in 2024 are not being taken seriously by top management. The same experts warned that the country would be in a recession by now. Our general feeling is that the Federal Reserve strategy for taming inflation and building a soft landing for the economy is working better than expected. The city has proposed reducing its municipal tax for this fiscal year beginning October 1st. So now Zero Hedge's opinion. So a total joke with surveys pointing in completely different directions, but the message was similar under the hood with prices soaring. Well, I wouldn't necessarily call that soaring, but prices are rising, yes. The final S&P Global U.S. Composite PMI Output Index posted 50.2 in August, down 50 from 52 in July. This signaled only a fractional increase in business activity at U.S. private sector firms. The slowdown in growth stemmed from a weaker service sector expansion and a renewed decrease in manufacturing output. The survey data sends a hint of rising stagflation risks as stubborn price pressures are accompanied by a near stalling of business activity. The PMI numbers for a third quarter so far point to a faltering of economic growth after a robust second quarter, as a renewed manufacturing downturn is accompanied by a deteriorating picture in the service sector. Not a pretty picture. Chris Williamson says, while a post-pandemic revival of travel, recreation, and hospitality spend contributed to an improved economic performance in the spring and early summer, this tailwind is losing momentum. Companies increasingly report customers to have become reticent to spend amid gloomier prospects as higher interest rates and the increased cost of living take their toll. However, financial services and business services providers are also increasingly feeling the pinch from weakening demand. Persistent wage growth is meanwhile being accompanied by renewed upward pressure on energy, fuel, and transport costs, as well as some broader firming of materials prices, driving cost growth higher. Competitive forces have kept a lid on selling price inflation, but the rate of increase of service sector changes remains elevated to the extent that consumer price inflation is likely to remain stubbornly above the Fed's target in the coming months. The key data to watch in the coming months will be the degree to which any further waning of demand for services translates into lower pricing power and reduced inflation. In other words, it looks like we're going to need more Bidenomics. SPY at 445? Maybe. I kind of wonder if there was any gamma levels there at 44.75. I don't know where the current levels are. I don't think yet in the ES that we've moved enough to be like outside of the range of volatility that like volatility is expanding here. So I would kind of be leaning towards the market clamps down on it in the end. But we got to watch out, because if it doesn't, then it's going to be a trend day, right? Okay, well, it's about time for me to get going here. It's a good day, I guess. What does that put us back at? I think we've already... no, wrong window. Okay, this is about half of the decline. Actually, we were at 1,000 at one point, right? So it's a quarter of an hour drawdown. But this is not bad. We can keep that up. 2 trades. To make that back in 2 trades, let's go. And maybe next time will be one where I can do 2 contracts. But we'll see. I'm a little bit skeptical about like interest rates' ability to really move too much higher. Like, I don't know how it's going to play out. Because again, I keep getting all these hints that like inflation is going to come back to 3% instead of 2%. And then what's the Federal Reserve going to do? They just allow it to continue running at 3% for a while, or are they just really going to crush the economy until they get to? And then I see all of this like things, kind of suggestions that the economy could just quickly slip into a recession any day now. Is kind of like, okay, so can the interest rates really go higher or not? I'm not sure. So we're not in one of those situations where I'm like, I can just come in and try and sell it every day, because the interest rates are going to go higher. We're not in that position. It's tough. I have to take it day by day. But for now today, that was a good win. Good play. And yeah, it never went further than where I had gotten out so far. Although it's hung out there a lot. So it wasn't necessary that I had gotten out of it exactly when I did, but I still got a good spot. So good trading. I will catch you guys. Well, we got to give us a title here. PMI suggests stubborn inflation. What am I gonna say? Save. Okay, guys, I'll catch you tomorrow. In the meantime, by the way, good stream. I appreciate all you guys came in new. Make sure you give the video a like. Catch you tomorrow. Stay excellent.